Triage essentially boils down to, does this patient need immediate interventions or can they wait? And we do these through a variety of different things. The first one's going to be the chief complaint and the signs and symptoms. The first is going to be chest pain. We know that it can be a sign of a serious condition like a myocardial infarction or even a pulmonary embolism. Another key chief complaint is shortness of breath. It can indicate respiratory distress or respiratory compromise due to conditions such as pneumonia, asthma, COPD exacerbations, pulmonary edema, or even a pneumothorax, as well as countless other reasons. Another crucial chief complaint is altered mental status. It can be a sign of neurological dysfunction or systemic illness, including hypoglycemia, stroke, or even sepsis. Another key chief complaint is anyone that comes in with trauma. Patients with severe trauma, such as motor vehicle accidents, falls from high heights, stab wounds, gunshot wounds, these require immediate attention to manage any life threatening injuries. Another key chief complaint is anybody coming in with stroke like symptoms, patients presenting with sudden onset neurological focal deficits, such as facial droop, arm weakness, slurred speech, unilateral numbness. And of course, another key one is fever in pediatric patients, because a fever can be a sign of a serious underlying infection. So these patients are placed at a priority due to their underdeveloped immune system. So these are going to be some of the key chief complaints that we're using in triage to figure out, does this patient need immediate interventions or can they wait? Another key part is going to be the vital signs that these patients are coming in with. The vital signs are crucial because they help us assess a patient's overall status. Abnormal vital signs such as tachycardia, hypotension, tachypnea, or hypoxia can indicate a serious issue that needs to be addressed. This further validates that a patient needs to be placed at a higher priority to receive attention and intervention, especially if it's tied together with the crucial chief complaint and a crucial vital sign. These patients need to be prioritized for assessment and interventions by the providers. The key risk factors that you should know are age, medical history, medications, recent procedures and surgeries, and social risk factors. For age, we're going to prioritize neonates, children, and the elderly due to the potential for serious injury. We're also prioritizing based on the medical history, such as diabetes, hypertension, known heart disease, increased cholesterol, smoker, immunosuppression. We're going to place the patient at an increased priority, especially if a lot of these key medical history risk factors are combined with crucial vital signs and a lot of the key chief complaints. For example, if someone comes in with shortness of breath, they're a little hypoxic and a little tachycardic, and they happen to be an elderly patient with a history of CHF or COPD, we're going to be prioritizing that patient. Other key things are going to be patients with crucial medications, like patients on blood thinners, patients are on insulin, and patients who are taking immunosuppressants. For example, if a patient comes in for altered mental status, they were involved in a trauma, and they're on blood thinners, that something deadly can be potentially happening, and that patient needs to be prioritized. Other crucial things are going to be recent procedures and surgeries. Recent surgeries or invasive procedures may place the patient at an increased risk for complications such as infections and bleeding. And of course, social risk factors such as alcohol abuse, smoking history, and drug use. A key tool that we're going to be using in the ER to prioritize patients is going to be the emergency severity index. It's 5 levels that kind of help us figure out what priority these patients should be. Level 1 is life threatening conditions that require immediate interventions. These patients should be seen immediately. We're thinking cardiac and respiratory arrest, severe trauma, active hemorrhage, acute myocardial infarction. For a level 2 emergent, we're thinking patients with potentially life threatening conditions. These patients are unstable and may deteriorate without prompt medical attention. They need to be seen by a provider within 10 minutes of the patient coming in. These patients often have unstable vital signs. That's the biggest thing. Level 3, which is urgent, these patients typically have stable vital signs, but they do require prompt assessment and interventions, and they should be seen within 30 minutes. The biggest thing between a level 3 and a level 2 is the vital signs. Level 3, typically stable vital signs. Level 2, emergent, typically vital signs are unstable. Level 4, we have less urgent. These are stable patients. These patients can wait up to an hour. No life-threatening conditions are present. You're thinking lacerations that require sutures, sprains or strains, minor burns, or mild pain. And level 5 is non-urgent. These patients do not require immediate attention, no life-threatening condition. They may wait for extended period of times. Think of medication refills, suture removal, or even simple cold-like symptoms. Also, with triage, some of the important things are going to be asking the right questions. A useful mnemonic is the sample mnemonic so you don't forget what to ask. S stands for symptoms, A for allergies, M for medications, P past medical history, last intake for L, and then E events. For allergies, do you have any allergies to medications? What medications are you currently taking? Have you been diagnosed with any medical conditions in the past, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol? Any recent surgeries? Do you smoke, drink alcohol, do any drugs? Last intake, you can also ask about in the events. What happened? Can you tell me what happened? Besides this, of course, based on the chief complaint, there's going to be a lot of key questions that you must ask. For example, if your patient just got in a motor vehicle accident, you need to ask how fast were you going? Were you wearing a seatbelt? Was there a separation from the vehicle? Did the airbags go off? Did you lose consciousness? You're going to ask questions regarding the mechanism. Where is your pain? And of course, these patients are going to require a thorough initial stabilization and secondary assessment to ensure nothing is missed. If the patient's coming in for syncope and loss of consciousness, we're asking what happened before it, any chest pain, dizziness, shortness of breath, or headache prior to the event. What were you doing when it happened? Did anyone witness it? What did they notice? How long were you unconscious? And the rest of the questions. For example, if somebody came in for seizures, you're going to ask, was it witnessed? If so, what did they notice? Did you have an aura prior to the seizure? Do you have a history of seizures? Have they happened before? When was the last one? Do you take medications for it? Which one? What's the dose? Have you even been taking your medications? Has there been a change in your medications? And you can ask the rest of the questions. Again, for triage, it's all going to be based on boiling down, does this patient need immediate interventions? Do they need to be immediately prioritized or can they wait? And we do this through the chief complaint and the signs and symptoms, with the key ones being chest pain, shortness of breath, altered mental status, trauma, stroke symptoms, and fevers. You're going to be combining this with the vital signs as well as the risk factors the patients are going to be coming in. And you can use a tool like emergency severity index to help you figure out what level of priority your patient should be.